Welcome to BeFM Drama, where this week we're presenting The Adventure of the Engineer's Thumb by Arthur Conan Doyle. In our last episode, Dr. Watson was roused from bed by the arrival of a patient from Paddington Station, a young hydraulic engineer named Victor Hatherley. Hatherley has a horrible injury. His left thumb has been cut clean off, leaving him terrified and in shock. He claims to have been the victim of a murderous attack, and Dr. Watson has decided to bring him before his friend, the private detective Sherlock Holmes, to learn the engineer's story. Sherlock Holmes was, as I expected, lounging about his sitting room in a dressing gown, reading the Times and smoking his foul before-breakfast pipe, which was loaded with all the leftover tobacco from the day before, which he carefully dried and collected on the corner of the mantelpiece. He received us in a quietly friendly fashion, ordered fresh bacon and eggs, and joined us in a hearty breakfast. Once we'd finished, he settled Mr. Hatherley on the sofa, put a pillow under his head, and lay a glass of brandy and water within his reach.
It is easy to see that your experience has not been common, Mr. Hatherley. Please lie down here and make yourself absolutely at home. Tell us all you can, but stop whenever you are tired and keep up your strength with a little brandy.
Thank you. I have felt like a new man since the doctor bandaged me, and I think your breakfast has completed the cure. I'll take up a little of your valuable time as possible. Allow me to begin my story at once.
Holmes sat in his big armchair with a weary, dreamy-eyed expression veiling his keen and eager interest. I sat opposite him, and we listened in silence to the strange account of our visitor. Mr. Hatherley was an orphan and a bachelor, living alone in London. By profession, he was a hydraulic engineer, with considerable experience after 7 years working for a large company. 2 years ago, having served his time and suddenly inherited into a good sum of money through his father's death, Hatherley decided to start in business for himself and leased a professional office in Victoria Street. As a doctor, I understand that everyone finds their first period of private practice a depressing one, but for Hatherley it was exceptionally so. During 2 years, he had no more than 3 consultations and 1 small job, and his gross earnings amounted to little more than £27. He sat in his office from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon every day, waiting for clients who never appeared, until at last his heart began to sink and he believed his business doomed to fail. During the afternoon of the day before Hatherley appeared in my consulting room with a blood-soaked bandage tied around his ruined hand, just as he was preparing to close up, his clerk entered the office to say there was a gentleman waiting who wished to see him upon business. He presented the man's card, which gave the name Colonel Lysander Stark. A moment later the colonel himself walked in, a tall man of exceeding thinness, with a sharp nose and pointed chin, the skin of his cheeks drawn tight over his bones. Hatherley had never seen a thinner man. His eyes were bright, his step brisk, and his bearing assured. He was plainly but neatly dressed, and his age, Hatherley judged, was closer to 40 than 30.
Mr. Hatherley, you've been recommended to me as a man who is not only skilled in his work, but also discreet and capable of keeping a secret.
Hatherley bowed, flattered by the compliments Stark had paid him.
May I ask who has given me such a good recommendation?
Well, perhaps it's better that I should not tell you that, but I have it from the same source that you're both an orphan and a bachelor, residing alone in London.
That is quite correct. But you will excuse me if I say I cannot see why all that is relevant to my professional qualifications. I understand it is a professional matter you wish to speak to me about.
Undoubtedly. But you will find that all I say is relevant. I have a job for you, but absolute secrecy is essential. Absolute secrecy, you understand? And of course, we may expect that may be easier for a man who lives alone rather than one who lives in the bosom of his family.
If I promise to keep a secret, you may absolutely depend upon my doing so.
Do you promise, then?
Yes, I promise.
Absolute and complete silence, before, during, and after? No reference to the matter at all, in word or writing?
I have already given you my word.
Very good.
Stark suddenly jumped up and moved like lightning across the room, flinging open the office door and looking up and down the corridor to make sure no one was listening. Satisfied it was empty, he closed the door and walked back to his seat.
That's all right. I know clerks can sometimes be curious about their employer's affairs. Now we can talk in safety.
Stark drew his chair very close to Hatherley's and stared at the engineer with piercing eyes. A feeling of unease and something akin to fear began to rise within the engineer at the odd antics of this thin man. Even his desperate need for clients could barely restrain him from asking Stark to leave.
Please state your business, sir. My time is of value.
How would £50 for a night's work suit you?
Hatherley had to keep his mouth from falling open at the ridiculous sum, which was over 10 times what he would normally charge for such a short job.
Most admirably.
I say a night's work, but an hour's would be more accurate. I simply want your opinion on a hydraulic stamping machine that has gone out of order. If you show us what's wrong, we'll fix it ourselves. What do you think of a commission such as that?
The work appears to be light and the pay generous.
Precisely so. We want you to come tonight by the last train.
Where to?
To Iford in Berkshire. It's a little place within 7 miles of Reading. There's a train from Paddington which would get you there at about 11:15.
Very good.
I shall come down in a carriage to meet you.
There is a drive, then?
Yes, our little place is out in the country, a good 7 miles from Iford Station.
Then we can hardly expect to arrive before midnight. There would be no chance of a train back. I would have to spend the night.
Yes, we could easily set up a spare room for you.
It's a little awkward. Why couldn't I come at some more convenient hour?
We've decided it's best if you arrive late. It's to compensate you for the inconvenience that we're paying you, a young unknown engineer, a fee that would buy the opinion of the greatest experts in your field. Of course, if you'd like to withdraw from our little deal, there's still plenty of time to do so.
Hatherley thought of the £50 and of how very useful they would be to him.
Not at all. I shall be very happy to accommodate myself to your wishes. I would like, however, to know a little more about what it is you want me to do.
Quite so. It's very natural that the pledge of secrecy, which we have asked from you, should arouse your curiosity. I have no wish for you to commit to a job without understanding what you'll be doing. I suppose we are absolutely safe from eavesdroppers?
Entirely.
Then the matter stands like this. You are probably aware that fuller's earth is a valuable material, and that's only found in 1 or 2 places in England.
I have heard so.
Some time ago I bought a place, a very small place, within 10 miles of Reading. I was fortunate to discover that there was a deposit of fuller's earth in one of my fields. On examining it, I found the deposit was a small one, but that it formed a link between 2 much larger deposits on the right and left. Both of them, unfortunately, on the property of my neighbors. These people are completely ignorant their land contains a resource as valuable as a gold mine. Naturally, I desire to buy their land before they discover its true value, but I have no capital with which to do so. I took a few friends into my secret, and they urged me to quietly and secretly work my little deposit until I earned the money necessary to buy the neighboring fields. This we have now been doing for some time, and in order to help with our operations, we've installed a hydraulic press. This press has broken down, and we need your advice on how to repair the machinery. We guard our secret very jealously. If it became known that hydraulic engineers were coming to our little house, it would soon start rumors, and if the facts come out, we can say goodbye to any chance of buying those fields and carrying out our plans. That's why I've made you promise that you will not tell a single human soul you are going to Iford tonight. I hope I make myself clear.
Perfectly so, but I can't quite understand why you would have any use for a hydraulic press in your work at all. I thought fuller's earth was dug out of a pit, like gravel.
We have our own process. We use the press to work the earth into bricks, so as to transport it more easily. But that's a mere detail. I have taken you fully into my confidence, Mr. Hatherley, and have shown you how I trust you. I shall expect you at Iford at 11:15.
I shall certainly be there.
And not a word to a soul.
Stark looked at Hatherley with a long, questioning gaze, and then, after pressing the engineer's hand in a cold, dank handshake, he hurried out of the room. Who is this mysterious, sinister colonel, and what could his true intentions be? How might the strange job Victor Hatherley has been tasked with lead to his current state, weak from blood loss and terror, a blood-stained bandage wrapped tightly around the horrible wound where his thumb used to be? Join us tomorrow as we delve deeper into the engineer's tale and discover some of the answers to our many questions.